Everyone thinks the Middle Ages were dark, dirty, and backward. But what if I told you that they invented the precursor to the internet, fought wars over jokes, and had health advice we still follow today? In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to flip the script on 12 medieval facts that aren't what you think. Let's go. Fact 1. There was no single dark age. The term was coined centuries later by Renaissance thinkers to contrast themselves with what they perceived as a cultural lull. In reality, the medieval period saw booming intellectual activity. Universities like Bologna and Oxford were founded in the 11th and 12th centuries, and scholars preserved and expanded on Greek, Roman, and Islamic knowledge. Fact 2. Long before Wi-Fi, medieval scholars had their own knowledge network. Monasteries and universities copied, annotated, and exchanged manuscripts across Europe. Marginalia, those scribbled notes in the margins, were early peer-review commentary and community discussion all rolled into one. Fact 3. Medieval medicine wasn't all leeches and superstition. While bloodletting gets the bad rep, many treatments were observational. Herbal remedies like willow bark, ancestor aspirin, were used for pain, and hospitals run by religious orders actually prioritized cleanliness in ways that were advanced for their time. Fact 4. The Magna Carta is often hailed as the birth of liberty, but originally it was a deal between King John and rebellious barons, protecting their feudal privileges. Still, its clauses on due process eventually echoed into later constitutional thinking. Fact 5. Before modern forensics, coroners and local officials conducted inquests. They interviewed witnesses, inspected wounds, and sometimes used rudimentary tests. The idea of establishing cause, intent, and culpability in a death was institutionalized surprisingly early. Fact 6. Jousting was part sport, part political theater. Nobles used tournaments to display wealth, forge alliances, and settle rivalries. There were detailed rule books, referees, and even penalties for unseemly conduct. It was a media event of its day. Fact 7. Copying text was laborious, so authors and patrons began guarding versions. Some monasteries annotated ownership, and there were disputes over unauthorized copying. Early sparks of what would become intellectual property debates. Fact 8. You heard that right. Animals were sometimes put on trial. Pigs, rats, even insects were tried for harming humans or destroying property. These were symbolic proceedings that reflected a worldview where order and blame needed formal recognition, even if the defendant was a beetle. Fact 9. The Black Death didn't just kill, it shifted power. with huge labor shortages. Surviving peasants could demand better wages, move, or even renegotiate feudal obligations. Some historians argue it accelerated the decline of feudalism and helped birth early capitalism. Fact 10. While literacy was low by today's standards, it wasn't binary. Merchants, not just clergy, learned to read practical texts. Vernacular literature grew in popularity, and women in some urban centers were literate and active in business and correspondence. Fact 11. Maps like the Teo weren't just navigation. They were theology. Jerusalem at the center, East on top. It told viewers how the world should be understood spiritually, not just physically. But at the same time, explorers and traders were compiling increasingly accurate regional maps, feeding into a tension between belief and observation. Fact 12. The Middle Ages were a period of cultural exchange. The compass, paper, advanced mathematics all came into Europe via the Islamic world, China, and the Mediterranean trade networks. So the image of isolated Europe is a myth. It was interconnected and absorbing innovations constantly. So what's the takeaway? The Middle Ages weren't a single story of backwardness. They were complex, adaptive, and full of paradoxes, science and superstition, law and ritual, isolation and exchange. If you like getting your historical assumptions challenged, hit like, subscribe, and drop in the comments which medieval fact surprised you most, or which one should we debunk next.